Hi everyone, I'm Rory O'Connor, and together we form the Creativity Hub. As Colette introduced, we're the creators of a game called Rory Story Cubes and the Extraordinary Design Studio. And we're kind of here today to talk about how we went from like a prototype to... Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so we're going to tell you basically our journey from a kind of a prototype on the kitchen table to selling 2 million games worldwide with lots of help along the way. Yeah, so can we get the next slide?
Yeah, basically the last slide was called the Little Red Hen approach, and we just based the kind of lessons we've learned along sort of lessons of the Little Red Hen of going out and doing it yourself and doing the next step. Do you want to tell the story? Does everyone know the story of the Little Red Hen? Is that something? Okay.
All right. So together, we have a mission, and our mission is to create publish playthings that really foster empathy, imagination, and self-esteem in kind of people of all ages around the world. But if you hit the next slide. So just to kind of show you our background, I recognize a couple of faces. I lived in Galway studying as a puppeteer and commuting to London and trying to get funding from the Arts Council. Also involved in community filmmaking in Northern Ireland and as a trainer in creative thinking and problem solving.
I started out being a graphic designer, and I went into e-learning. I did my master's in computer-based learning, and then I worked in user experience within BBC Technology for 6 years before I left, and we sort of started this all. So we kind of have a complementary skills, and I think that's why we work well together.
So when we were even collaborating, I used to get Anita to design the posters for my puppetry shows that I used to perform way back. Next slide.
Yeah, so apart from this, we have 3 kids, and everything we've done, we've sort of had to do, like the idea for Story Cubes, our oldest was a baby, and everything we've done along the way, we've had to do it with 3 young kids along the way, so there's been juggling involved.
The Creativity Hub isn't just the 2 of us. and you'll actually see that put into practice later on on some of the slides. Can I get the next one? Yeah, so we'll kind of, before we rewind time, we'll just kind of say, like we said, Story Cubes is published. We have a licensing deal with the US company who publish it in the US, Canada, Mexico, Australia, and New Zealand. And kind of together, we calculated we probably sold about 2 million sets of the game worldwide.
We publish it ourselves everywhere else in Europe, and we're going into Asia now. So the licensing deal is sort of mainly North America based, but the rest of it is all done through us. And
yeah, and we've kind of luckily picked up about 16 awards along the way from mommy bloggers to kind of major organisations as well. Oh, so this is for people who don't know.
Once upon a time,
put on the music is good.
and a shooting star, he wished for someone to share his heart. Instead, a giant turtle tried to eat him up, but he'll never do it, 'cause the old man is super speedy. Yes, really. Once upon a time, in this story of mine, a plane flying highway up in the sky. It took a long time, but I don't know why. The man inside said, I need a new ride. So he called on his friend B, who flew him where he needed to be. Once upon a time, there was an evil mastermind. He's up there spying on us high in the sky. The call goes out, find out why. Phone rings, voices, don't even try. But who could this villain be that's so evilly? Of course, it's the dastardly sheep and his cat.
For those who don't know, Rory Story Cubes is a really simple storytelling game. It's 9 cubes with 54 iconic images, and every time you roll it, you get one of over 10 million possible combinations. And the challenge is to make a story that starts with once upon a time and somehow it joins together all nine images. Man, I can say that in my sleep. So actually, just very quickly, this is an example of what the guys were talking about earlier. We, knocked on the door of the guys who were working in the kind of run-down building that we were sharing at the beginning and said, "Would you help us to make a video to promote the game?" And we worked with a friend as well who helped with the music composition and the lyrics. So anyway, on with the actual show.
So, Little Red Hen, yeah. So, we both remember this story from when we were kids. Do you want to tell the story or do you want me to?
Well, who remembers it?
Yeah. So it's the Little Red Hen finds some grains of wheat and some seeds, and she says, "Who'll help me make some bread?" And everyone goes, "Not I, not I, not I," said the cat, "not I," said the rat, "not I," said the pig. So she goes and she plants the seeds herself, and then she says, "Who will help me harvest the wheat?" So they all say, "Not I," and she does it herself. Then she goes, "Who will help me mill the wheat?" And they all say, "Not I." Then basically, "Who will help me bring the wheat to the baker?" And "Who will help me?" It isn't until they say, "Who will help me eat the bread?" where they all go, "I will, I will, I will." So we've kind of based our thing on
So I'm going to try something. So what's the moral of the kind of story? Yeah, trust you and yeah, so most people go, "Screw you, I'm going to keep it all myself." But we take a kind of different take on the story. So, yeah, so this talk is about the kind of 4 lessons that we take from the Little Red Hen.
So the first is, don't wait for others, get started.
Because the hen had a crazy idea. She said, "I'm going to take these little things and I'm going to put them in the ground and it's going to create bread." And everyone's like, "You're nuts. I'm not getting involved in that, that's way too risky."
The second one is find a yes hidden in the no. So even though when they all said no, she kind of took it to the next step, knowing that there would be a yes in the end. The other thing is that she didn't try to make bread from the seeds. She broke it down into the steps that's needed along the way. So we always say, what's the smallest next step we need to do to move forward? And people get on board when the time is right. When it's bread and when you can see it, then that's when people go, "Aha, that's what you meant by turning these seeds into bread." So it was only really when we had a product that then you can kind of go and talk to different people and ask them for help in getting it to the next step.
Yeah, so in our world, all those animals then went and told the rest of the world, the animals, about, "There's this cool thing called bread and you should really get it from the chicken, from the hen." Okay, so we're going to tell kind of some of our story and how we map these experiences to what we did. Okay, so we're going to rewind to 2004, which is when I was working as a kind of creativity coach and trainer. It was a really dirty word at the time. And people were kind of saying, "You don't need that because it's in the middle of the boom." But I was trying to come up with really simple tools to help people to use creative thinking, because they said, that's not like work, so I'm not going to spend the time, using creative thinking in my work. And so I want to come up with practical and tangible things that people could interact with, because they felt like they were working then when they did that. So this is kind of the story of how we went from an idea that looked like it on the left to the kind of final product on the right-hand side. Yeah, so...
Pictures tells it all.
Yeah, don't do the same. So this is it. I've got this great idea. It's amazing.
We told baby we had.
Yeah. So yeah, I kind of had using a creativity invention technique that I had learned. I used it to kind of come up with the story cubes. But it was this Rubik's cube with icons on it, and that's how I pictured it. And I kind of said to Anita, "Oh, I've got this great idea. I think it would be kind of pretty cool." And she's like, "Yeah, just
show me. I had baby brain at the time. I was going, I don't, just stop telling me about it. Just make it." And I think that was good advice. So
I did. Went out and bought a Rubik's cube and sat down and doodled. We sat down over coffee one day and doodled out loads of icons, picked the ones that were going to go on it, printed them out, laminated the sheet, cut them out, stuck them on, and made it and started playing with it and went, "This is kind of cool." So we called it the Metacube, because it was a metaphorical storytelling cube at the time.
So that's the first lesson, is like, don't wait for others to try and explain what you're talking about. Just go ahead, make something, show it in some way, and get it started.
If I had waited for Anita to go, "Yes, Roy, that's brilliant, you should do that," I'd be waiting a long time. Okay. So as I said, it started as a kind of creative problem-solving tool, and really I was using it with people as a creative thinking tool where they would pose a question and they would tell a story using like a kind of twist of the Metacube, and then we would connect the story to the question they were asking, and basically it was their kind of unconscious brain talking to their conscious brain through metaphorical story, and they were, you know, interpreting this and getting answers. So that's how it started, and that was our target audience at the time. I used to hand make them and sell them for about €20, I think. You know, just the amount of time it took to make them, I wasn't making anything on it, but it was just so cool that people actually wanted to buy this prototype, you know, kind of from me. And we thought, God, if we're really lucky, we might sell like a couple of hundred of these around the world.
So then one of the colleagues that Rory had been doing some creativity coaching work with had bought one of these, and he had given it to his daughter, and she had to practice her handwriting in school, and she was, you know, how do you practice handwriting? But anyway, she was creative writing, and she said she used to make up a story with it, and found it much easier to write down the ones that she didn't come up with herself, rather than just kind of copying out sentences or trying to come up with a story on a blank sheet of paper. So we realised that, on the next slide, that, okay, maybe there's a bigger audience for this here, you know, so our kind of target audience grew to being teachers, that, you know, if this kind of thing can inspire that kind of creative writing, then how cool is that to get kids using their creativity, not just the adults as a creative thinking tool, but letting children use it at an early age.
But we were still a kind of, at the time we were doing creativity training, you know, facilitation. We were a service-based kind of partnership at the time. So we didn't really pay much attention to that education aspect. We kind of thought that's interesting and just parked it. We kept focusing on this as a kind of creative problem-solving tool. So then when we actually thought, hang on, there might be something more to this, we're obviously in breach of copyright with Rubik's Cube, so we better send a letter to the copyright owners and see if we can, you know, license the idea to them, and this was their reply.
Basically, so next slide. We couldn't do that.
Yeah, so basically we had to kill that. So we asked, what is the essence of the story cubes? Because the idea is good, and we know the idea is viable, but basically the form it takes isn't practical.
So we kind of broke it down, and this is one of the things of where each step along the way there's problem solving to be done. So we took this thing we had and went, right, what is the essence of it? If we can't do it that way, is there another way that we can do it? And really it was, you know, it was 54 images, it was a portable, tactile experience. It was all these things that we learned with it.
And I'll just note, we didn't actually document any of that at the time. It's like looking back, that's what we actually did. So we come to the next slide. So yeah, I was out for over in, I spent my last pennies going through a training course in the States on kind of creativity training, and I met a colleague who handmade kind of puzzle games over in the States, and I was telling her about what had happened, and she said, oh yeah, why don't you use dice? And I said, oh yeah, you know, I had that idea in my kind of notebook from years ago. So over dinner, she printed out a sheet. We got some dice, you know, we cut them out while everyone else was eating their big American meals, and we were like sticking things in and playing with them, and realised this was actually much better than the form I had previously taken with the Metacubes, because it did a lot of what we wanted, but it also then, you know, opened up more opportunities, and then the sound and the tactile experience was just even better than working with the Rubik's Cube.
So yeah, that's the lesson. So to find the yes hidden in the no, you know, we could have just said, oh well, that was a good idea, but sure, 7 towns who have the rights to Rubik's Cube don't want it, so oh well, let's go back to the drawing board. But again, just problem solving another way, find the yes hidden in the no.
Well, yeah, I kind of refuse to be the person propping up the bar, going, like, handing over my control to somebody else. Like, if they say no, that's fair enough, but I'm not going to let that stop me from doing something that I think is really important, and we'd already seen the impact this was having with people. Yeah, so you can see 2005, 2006, the cubes went from the Metacube to the Rory Story Cubes. A name I hated at the time, but I've grown to accept. And you see they were like stickered, they were really worn, they'd wear off, then they got a little bit bigger, but still the stickers would wear off, and we thought, whilst these were great and people liked them, and we probably sold, I don't know, maybe about 100 of these, I think. We kind of knew this wasn't the end point, and we had an agreement with Kate from Kate on Games that she would make the games for us, but as soon as we found a better source, we would switch somewhere else to do it.
So yeah, we always knew we needed if we were going to bring it any further than just sort of selling them ourselves, we needed better dice and better quality. So we managed to source a company, and they made like casino quality dice. So they have a really nice tactile quality to them. They're debossed in so that they don't smudge, so they last a long time. So once you buy them.
And so kind of what was happening at this time in 2007 was I had managed to, after I think it was 18 months, managed to get a contract of delivering a training program to a financial bank in Dublin, and like I had to call it the innovation hub when I was talking to them because that's what they were interested in, but to me it was like the change agent training program. It was trying to get, encourage people to think differently about themselves and their world, and we just kind of dressed it up as an innovation hub. But as part of that, one of the deals was that I would give a set of story cubes to everyone who took part in this program, and we said, yeah, sure, no problem. And then we came away and it was like, oh my god, we can't give them sticker dice, like that'll never, doesn't look professional enough, and that we'd have to source a better form. So along with sourcing the dice from somewhere else, we needed a box, but we'd no money to spend on packaging design or anything like that. And we kind of were walking around with the intention of spotting something that could be kind of repurposed or reused. And one day Anita was taking some jewellery out of a box that she had, and I said, give me that. And I literally reached across and took the 9 dice and stuck them in and went, perfect. And we looked at the back of the box. It was supplied from a local jeweller's store. And so I kind of got on my bike and cycled down and said, like, where did you get these? Can I buy them? And we managed to, I think, they put them in contact with the supplier, and we bought 500 of them from them, got stickers printed and stuck them on and supplied them. So that became the first kind of retail release version of Rory's Story Cubes.
Well, it was mainly, I set up a website as well, and we started sort of selling them just through PayPal, and it just kind of grew up from there. This is how we made them. So,
yeah.
Yeah, hands-on. But that is, like, that found packaging, we knew we needed a better box, but we couldn't afford to go and start from scratch and start ordering them, so we had to find a found solution. So again, that's the smallest step moving forward in our lessons.
And even with that, in terms of that kind of deal with the bank we worked with, they were humming and hawing like for 18 months about, we need to do this, need to do that for me to get in, because I was just like a Joe nobody compared to PwC or any of the other people they were looking at. And I literally asked him that question. I went, look, this is Chris Norman Fairbrace. What's the smallest step we can take to move this forward? And he went, well, I have this small training budget of like £1,000 or €1,000, and I could bring you in for 2 days, and that would give the senior staff a chance to see you. And right, fine, let's do that. And that's what ultimately landed that deal, which then allowed us to have some money to make the story cubes.
So with basically the money from that contract paid for everything in the first run, and but then we only needed to give them 30 sets, so we had another 470 to sell ourselves on the website, and we started seeing, okay, there is a bigger possibility with this, but it was still a sideline project at this point.
Oh yeah, so meanwhile, it was 2008, dun dun dun, recession hit. So basically this company I was working with killed the training. All the people we were talking to about training were just cancelled. They said, no, not right now, and I spent lots of time chasing people, and and being a kind of, for me, being a creative person, I wasn't very good at the whole sell thing, so I really hated having to phone people up and chase all that. But basically the training had all dried up, and we were like, we're screwed, we need to do something. There's no money coming in.
Yeah, we could either chase the training more and go after like a tiny market that was left with everyone else that was already working in that field, or we could go, let's do something different here, let's put what we were talking about into practice.
We looked at, what we had was this game called, this little thing called Rory Story. It seemed to be growing in popularity, and it was like, right, well, if we don't give it a try now, how can we expect anyone else to get behind it if we're not willing to take the kind of risk with it right now?
Yeah, so this is what we really call our jumping off a cliff moment, because there was the 5,000 that we had got from it was an award for social enterprise project, because the story cubes were being used in the classrooms for multiple languages in the classroom and for second language learning. And our second set is kind of based, it's called Rory Story Cubes Actions, and it was the 54 most used verbs illustrated, and we worked with an English college with it, and it was really as a tool to help people learn a second language. And we had this money that, we were kind of going, it was for market research and to see what we could do with this product. But we were like going, okay, we can either go and spend it on market research, which we're supposed to be doing, or we can live on it, for a couple of months. And it really was that kind of decision of going, right, it was a big decision to make, because it was like, okay, with the end we went, what's the worst that can happen? Like, we go under earlier, but at least we'd have given it a shot.
I can remember that conversation. I remember, and we kind of went, what's the worst thing that could happen? And we went, we'd lose the house. But, it was one thing that we kind of had, and we went, right, so what would be the worst thing about losing the house? And we went, well, there's the kind of social shame of kind of, losing your house. But we went, like, how would we deal with that? And we said, well, someone would put us up. We could go and live with someone, and we'd just build things up from there. And we went, are we willing to accept that? And yeah, okay, so we're willing to accept that potential risk. And that's where we kind of, that really was, this is in my head, we jumped off a cliff.
So we took the money, we went to the toy fair in London with this little game in our back pocket, and Rory went over a day before me, and he just kind of scouted around to see who we should be talking to, and you can tell the story.
Yeah, I had one arranged meeting with a guy, and I went over and met with him, and he was a really creative person, and he said, this is great, but I can't do anything with it, because it was like completely the antithesis of how you would pack a game or sell a game. It's small, it's at a low price point, it was all the things that were wrong about how people were marketing games at the time. So I wandered around this toy fair, and literally I would walk by a stand and go, I should really talk to him, I should really talk to him, I should really talk to him. Oh, it's too late. And I'd keep on going. And I did this for pretty much that day. And then I knew Anita was coming the next day, and I was like, oh shit. She's going to kill me if I haven't talked to anybody. So I got a little bolder the second day, and kind of made a point of talking to people. And we met one company, Ravensburger UK. So they're a big German company, and they're really famous for making puzzles and games for kind of very young children. And they saw the game, and they really liked it, and emailed us the next day. So we were really excited. But they said, but we want you to put it into like a bigger box with maybe a timer and a pencil, something to kind of big it up a little bit and make it look like it's worth more than it does at the moment.
And the thing was that even though we'd sold, I think there was about 1,000 sets ourselves now on our website at this point, and all the feedback that we were getting back was, I love the size of it, it fits in my handbag, I bring it to restaurants with my kids, I use it as a problem-solving tool, it's in my bag with me when I need it. So we were kind of going, okay, if we put it in a big box, it'll sit in on the game shelf, and it'll be played with very rarely, and it's just not going to be the same product as what we were, what the sort of vision we had for it, which was, as Rory said, it was always like to have this tool in the top drawer in your kitchen where you can take it out and sort of play it every now and again, or if you want to come up with some creative problem solving, it's there with you at all times, and that was really our...
Yeah, your junk drawer that you have in the kitchen.
Yeah,
so the idea, my vision is one day everyone will have some kind of creative thinking tool sitting in there that they go to when they need to solve a problem. So, instead of, a Ravensburger or someone else making their money from the story cubes, we thought, well, someone thinks they're going to make money from it, then we should kind of make some money from it. So instead of licensing it, we kind of took whatever it was we had left and, reinvested it. We were like the elves and the shoemaker. We'd sell a few, whatever money we made from that, we'd put it straight back into getting some more made. And we even did some interesting things with their finances to facilitate that as well. Yeah, I think it's legal. But so by this point, it was kind of early. This would have been about mid-2010. By this point, kind of off our own back, we'd sold 10,000 sets of. Oh yeah, sorry. Actually, we'd ordered. Yes, actually, we'd ordered 10,000 sets of Story Cubes original and 5,000 sets of Story Cubes Actions.
So yeah, this was. Every time we spoke to like the Ravensburgers, they were all telling us that they wanted bigger box for a lot of different reasons. And we sat down one day and we said, right, what are the reasons? What really are the needs here that they're talking about? So when a game is in a shop, it needs to be bigger on the shelf because it needs to be visible, and people need to be able to see what's in it. It needs to be theft-proof, which we found like. All of these concerns were in a shop. So while we were saying no, there's no way you can make it big, there was reasons why games are big in shops.
But so there was legitimate concerns that they had. It's just their solution was make it bigger. That that was the only way they could think of the solution, was just make it bigger, and we didn't want to kind of really buy into that because it would basically not meet the needs of our fans who were using it.
Who were telling us that they liked the fact it was small. So we skipped a slide there.
No. Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah, you can explain this part of this. Sorry, this is our day-to-day business life.
You can't see the domestics now. So when we were looking at the needs, I sort of went, well, what is it that sells for a lot of money, but is in and it's perceived with a lot of value, but it's in a small box? And I was looking at different cosmetic brands and going, you know what, they're very expensive. Nobody, thinks that there's not good value in it because they're in a small box. So we looked at that kind of thing. So instead of looking at what toy companies were doing, we went and looked at what cosmetic companies were doing, and we prototyped up this magnetic box.
I have to add, that was our treat after we did our expenses. It's like, right, now we can have some fun and actually make the box.
So, so this is the result of that. We designed a box that it had perceived value for both the retailer and the customer. So because it's a little magnetic box, it looks expensive. And we had a sleeve on it here, that the sleeve has all the information that you need when you're selling it in the shop, like the barcode. We've got 6 different languages in the box. It doesn't matter if you're home if you throw that away, because you've got this really nice little box product. The advantage of this as well is that this is completely language free. So once we had designed this once, this was the only thing we needed to change to go into countries around the world. So, yeah.
I couldn't find the right place to put this, but I just had to go in. I mean, this is how we felt coming from, we never believed we were business people. We were just someone who, two people who had an idea that we thought warranted existing in the world. And in order to do that, we had to learn all of this stuff, which I didn't know about at the time. And I'm guessing you don't know about and really don't need to know about. But in order for us to get Rory Story Cubes out to a wider audience, we had to learn about barcoding, bills of lading for shipping, distributor agreements, barcoding, logistics, a lot of really fun stuff.
So, do you want to explain some of the thing?
Well, yeah, so we had a better kind of a box that was more appealing. By this point, we had licensed it to a game company in the US called GameRight. And that was kind of a strategic move because we knew we'd never get in there. It's really hard to actually break in as a product on your own. But we kind of used that as leverage, that when we'd travel to a number of trade shows, and one in Nuremberg is like the biggest one that's held every year, we could say, oh yeah, we've got a deal with this company in the US, so you should really take the product over here. And we managed to pick up a lot of distributors at that point because we were able to tell them X amount had sold. We had a licensing agreement with a company in the US, so we were taking away a lot of the risk for them in terms of picking up this new product.
So that's kind of our last one then. Then once we had shown it that it was a product now that could be sold in shops, that's when people could get on board. So we weren't asking them for this to get on board at the little prototype stage. We were really going, okay, here it is, we've done a lot of the work for you, now get on board with it and help us sell it.
And they come up and go, oh my god, this is brilliant, this is really exciting, this could be really big. And you go, yeah, that's kind of interesting. Do you want to work with us? You know, instead of telling them to go jump, because a lot of them had actually come by the year before or the year before that and had ignored the product. So, you know, you had to kind of fire tongues again and again.
So I just wanted to put this in because as a designer and as someone working in the service industry, to move from service-based industry to product-based industry is just, it's a completely different world. We had kind of thought of like, okay, you make this product and then, right, you sell more and therefore you make more money, right? You know, that was sort of the assumption we made. But once you get into, you know, the business world, you know, for every one that we were selling on our website, when we put it into a shop, we needed to sell 2. So then when it went through a distributor, we needed to sell 4 of them just to make the same money as our on the website. But then when we signed a deal with the publishing company, they had to sell 40 for us to make the same amount of money as one. So the numbers don't, it's not just an upward curve that sell more, make more, it's all different decisions that you have to make. And that, I think, is the single biggest thing we had to get our head around, moving from service, you know, where you do more work, you make more money, to products. It's not the same kind of thing at all.
Yeah, people were saying, you know, business kind of mentors and gurus were saying, oh, you know, sell it online, you make much more money than if you kind of distribute it. But the problem is, you make more money of an invisible product because nobody sees it and nobody knows what it is. And it's like, you know, you were saying with the music video, this kind of ready-made audience who are going to kind of pick it up. When you're coming with something completely new or different, there is no connection point for it. So for us, distribution and licensing was kind of marketing, you know, because people would see it in the shop and then maybe the 6th or 7th time they'd see it, they'd go, oh yeah, I should really buy it. But if it was only online, that would never really happen. Yeah. So that's kind of the bulk of our talk. We just wanted to kind of show what's kind of happening for us right now, and then to talk about, explain our new game, The Extraordinaires, because hopefully a bunch of you are going to win some today. So it'll be good to know what you're getting. So with the story cubes, we're getting a lot of feedback from people who are saying, we absolutely love them. We use them in care homes. We use them with children, you know, and adults with physical kind of motor disability or sight impairment. And they said they love them, but they're too hard to manipulate, or the icons are too hard to see. So we put a message, like a post on our blog, and said, if we made a bigger version, like, would you buy it? And we got 200 replies saying, yes, we would. So we went, okay, well, we're not going to make tons of money from this, but in terms of, you know, getting people using their imagination and telling stories, we can do it as a kind of just a loss leader. We'll do it, we'll break even, and we'll be kind of doing something nice on the back of it. So
we made the max version, which is instead of 19mm dice, it's 30mm dice. But we also deliberately didn't want to scale down. Everyone was saying, oh, just, it's all right, it's for like special needs education. You don't need to put it in, just put it in a bag or something, it's fine. It'll end up in a what do you call those little plastic tubs in the classroom anyway. But we were saying, but that's kind of devaluing creativity, and for us it was just really important that tactile experience and is kind of experienced as part of it. So we made it the max version, so it's a bigger version, but it's actually selling as a kind of corporate gift now, and for training, you know, for corporate training, where you can go in and do icebreakers or that kind of thing. It's easier to see them than in the small cubes in group work.
Yeah, so our biggest fan of these is 91, and he lives in a care home in England and uses them as an icebreaker for anybody who's new who comes into the care home. I always think of him as a hustler. But actually, yeah, I just heard an immense love for another woman in there, and they've kind of got together. I don't know if it was down to Story Cubes Max, but I like to think so. So.
Yeah, and we also have the mix range. They've just hit the shops now, and this was because we keep being asked for new sets of story cubes. Can you bring out this set? Can you theme it on whatever I'm interested in? And we realised that we couldn't keep bringing out 9 dice sets of story cubes. But
well, I didn't think it would be kind of fair, and it would have been an easy kind of business decision to make. You bring out 9 dice, people will buy it, and I didn't kind of really want to do that. But we knew there was still loads of stories to tell, and people had lots of ideas, and I had lots of ideas for different themes and sets that we could do. So we realised when we had made the third 9 dice set that it only took a few to change the story. Like if you put in a picture of an icon of a crab, suddenly it becomes an underwater story. It has that kind of power or weight to it. So with these, we concentrated on making really kind of strong icons that if you see them mixed in, it completely transforms the story. So we have kind of plans for, if you're a collector, you're just going to wet yourself with these. But we do have plans like for 6 years of what we're going to do with this. But like clues, you know, we say encourage tales of cracking crime. They're like CSI stories. Enchanted are like grim fairy tales. And Prehistoria is all about kind of time travel and early man and bloody mammoths. If you're anyway, you know, didactic about history, don't play with these. Okay?
it's about imagination, it is about theming. So the idea with this is you can take your original set, take out 3 of the dice, put in 3 of your theme, and it just transforms your storytelling. So we're really looking forward to seeing what stories come back to us, because we get so many people sending us what they're doing with StoryCube. So really looking forward to seeing that.
So kind of part of all this is, it's like it just doesn't stop. You know, we're done, we can sit back and relax. It's, you know, we were in small shops where we're buying them, and it was fine having the little box of story cubes and a little kind of tray to display it. But now we're kind of going into, like, Art and Hobby is probably our biggest, say, chain stockist in Ireland, and Waterstones would be in the UK. And they're saying that we need something bigger or something different, and we realise there's a whole new set of challenges we need to solve of how do you make this visible and not get lost on a shelf. So we're constantly having to find, you know, keep the integrity of the product whilst growing and doing more things. So, because this is what happens, you know, this is a photo from, we were in the States during the summer, and I don't know if this is Walmart or Target, but, you know, we thought we could just keep the box the way it was, and we'd have arguments with our US kind of publisher and say, you know, why don't you just do it the way we did it? And they're saying, oh, our market's different and you don't understand. And we walked in here and we're like, okay, we get it. So can you spot the story cubes here? Yeah, so you realize it's quite a challenge. This is the kind of US packaging for it. But it's like, we never imagined we'd be at this point. Because I can remember signing the agreement with the US company, and I went, if we sell 10,000 sets, we're going to be really happy. You know, we're like, 10,000 people? No, where are these people going to come from and buy story cubes? That's like crazy. And so now that, you know, people from Walmart and Target are looking for it in the US, that's such a bizarre thing, but we have to keep solving problems if we want to reach people, which is kind of ultimately our goal with this.
So yeah, so now we have it on sale in 50 different countries, and we have localized the packaging in 26 different languages. So between us and in the US, there's over 2 million sets sold. And they're the numbers that sort of everyone else kind of gets excited by, you know, but if you just go to the next slide. But we estimate that, like, if there's 6 million people telling stories out there, you know, I mean, how cool is that? We just get stories back of, like, hearing about 3 generations sitting around for 2 hours telling stories together, and you know, they actually take the time then to write to us and say, you know, this doesn't happen with anything else. We got where stocking fillers, you know, where the game comes in, like the Xboxes and everything come as the main Christmas gift, and this is in the stocking that kind of gets picked up a couple of days later, and they write back, and the kids are kind of going, no, this is really, really cool, I really love it.
Or the one that I go to when I'm feeling down, I sometimes like scroll through Amazon and kind of read the reviews to go, why the hell am I doing this? And there was one comment, and it was a guy, grown man, whose father had a stroke, and their healthcare budget kind of had run out in the States, and someone had told him about the story cubes. So he was basically using the story cubes as a form of therapy with his father to help him, you know, kind of regain his speech. And it's like, right, stop whining, Rory, and pick yourself up and kind of, you know, get out there and bring this out. So we kind of had a chat last week about, like, why should we be doing this? Like, why should we be making story cubes and not just give it to kind of, you know, sell it off to somebody else? And we kind of realised they actually give people a voice, even just for like 60 seconds. That period of time they're telling a story, they're being listened to or they're being heard. And we thought that's kind of really powerful, and that's why we need to keep doing this, and why we can't kind of give it to anyone else yet, because they don't get the value of that. So from that perspective, you know, there's a lot more people for us to reach, and it's why we now look differently at the likes of mass market and things like that, that we would have rejected and went, oh no, that's corporate America, we're not going to do that. But we went, well, hang on, if it's a kid who gets his hands on these, whose mum or dad is never going to bring them into a toy shop or a gift shop, but pick them up here, well then, we kind of got to do it that way to reach them.
So, yeah, and we're very much still hands-on. We kind of were looking at this as how we're going to grow. So during the summer we did our US, we were over in the US, and we did go into toy stores and demo, and you know, really kind of talk to the people on the ground, as well as looking at the sort of mass market. We took our kids with us, and they're complete Story Cube ambassadors.
Yeah. So in that top photo on the left, our eldest sister is actually working off the book she had just bought in the shop across the road. We're like, right, to pay for that, you need to demo the Story Cubes.
At least an hour.
But again, with this, we made the trip because it was the summertime. We're both working. We needed to sort out kind of childcare. And we thought, well, if we can actually travel and do some promoting and bring the children with us, we kind of get the best of both worlds with it. And yeah, and hopefully they learn some things as well along the way.
So,
yeah, so just as a reminder before we go on to talk about the extraordinaires, you know, this is as a reminder of why we do what we do. It's, you know, we see imagination, empathy, and self-esteem as kind of like 3 cornerstones to a healthy human being, and would solve a lot of kind of difficulties in the world if we kind of felt better about ourselves, and in turn better about other people around us. That we had imagination to imagine a better world, and then like the self-esteem to actually act on that imagination and do something about it. So everything we do is kind of focused around that.
So what is the difficult second album? And we're always being asked kind of, what's next, what's your next plan? And we realised that we weren't going to become a publisher like other game companies, where they kind of bring out new titles every single year, and they bring out between 5 and 8 titles and hope one of them sticks, and then just kill off all the others. We kind of went, we really have to believe in, if we're going to do this and really put our heart and soul into it, we really have to believe in it. So the difficult second album, it started out as an idea when, it was actually the first year we went to the education show with Story Cubes. It was the education show in Birmingham, and at the time there was all this talk and buzz about the creative curriculum, because, you know, industry is saying that kids are coming out of school and out of college and they don't have the skills of self-expression, you know, more than one outcome, problem-solving skills that are needed in the workplace now. And I was hearing all of this and going, they were asking, first of all, can you come up with products? Story Cubes is kind of doing this job. Can you come up with more products that help with our creative curriculum? And I went, okay, well, all those things are what we learned in art college. Like, we didn't learn it in primary school and secondary school, but the first week you go into art college and you have your first crit. I don't know if anyone went to art college and remember their first crit. It's like your work is put on the wall and you have to defend it. You have to stand up there and say why you did it. And I think coming from Ireland, we're not used to that. We're not used to talking about ourselves and bigging ourselves up. You ask an American kid, and they've been doing it since the age of 3, you know, and show and tell every week. And it was something that was, I really went like, right, we need to kind of get kids, like with the Story Cubes telling their stories, like getting their voice out there, getting used to explaining what they're doing and talking about their own work. So, oh, we got the award on it.
Yeah, we just got this award yesterday, so on the train down, I was like, copy and paste.
So we came up with the Extraordinaires Design Studio. So next slide there will show you it open. So this is a game in which you get to role play being a designer. So we've got 15 characters that we call the Extraordinaires, and they are, we've got a superhero, an evil genius, a fairy, a robot, a ninja, a spaceman, a giant, merman. And they all need everyday objects in their lives. So you draw an extraordinaire card, and then you have to draw an object card, and these are 15 everyday objects. So they're things like a music player, a cooking utensil, something to sit on. So they're everyday objects. So this, like a fairy here needs something to wear, or you might have a robot needs a remote control, or an evil genius needs a cooking utensil. And in the studio you sketch it up, and on the next slide you have what people are starting to come up with. So they're starting to kind of use their creative thinking and coming up with things like an orange peel dress for a fairy, and they can totally justify what they're doing because a fairy needs natural materials. And
it's incredible hearing people have discussions about this. I remember two grown men, like they were kind of in their 50s, and they were inventing a remote control for an evil genius. And they were saying, well, because on the card he's got cats, and he's like, well, he's got cats and he's off doing evil genius things, so he needs to be able to feed them while he's away, and maybe he's off visiting his mother. And I was just going, like, look at them going, holy cow. But what's incredible is they totally get into the world of the character and trying to solve for it, and it's just incredible the stuff that people come up with when they play with this. And our kind of hope is that by coming up with incredible stuff here, we might create an accidental inventor. So by accidentally solving a problem for one of the extraordinaires, someone goes, hang on, this could actually be useful in the real world. And they kind of do what we did, which is like prototype it, make it, and try and make it a reality.
I'm Tom Donegan.
This is actually a presentation from, we launched it at Offset in Dublin in April. Brian was meant to be here, but we both have a mutual friend who passed away during the week, so he couldn't make it. But we launched the Extraordinaires, and we ran a big design challenge competition to win a couple of awards that are in the game. But part of that is you had to present your idea to camera. So this is one of the presentations.
I'm Tom Donegan. This is the bespoke pirate booty bed, and it's a bed for a pirate soar to sleep. So some of the features, it's basically like a treasure chest by day, but then in the night time you open it out, and the pirate sleeps inside in all his jewels to keep him safe. Here we have a stand for his parrot to sleep on. There's a hook for him to hang his hook. The legs are made of wooden legs, spare wooden legs, and there's a bottle of rum there as well. And here is probably the most special feature, pieces of After 8 on the pillow. Boom, boom. And all in all, yeah, it's a great place for a pirate to sleep.
so yeah,
My name is Chris Wood, and I have designed.
No.
So with this product, we're really back at the beginning again. I mean, we're lucky enough that this time we sort of could make something tangible straight away. We didn't really have to go back to the early prototype stage, because we had made some money on story cubes. But we really are back at the beginning with the sales. We have one chain of stores in the States selling it. They have 25 stores.
I'm going to stop you.
Okay. You rewind.
Yeah, so this is a kind of a new game, and we presented it to, we thought, well, we've got a distribution network now to be kind of easier to talk to them about this idea. And we showed it to all the different people we knew, and they were like, oh my god, this is amazing. This is really innovative. I've never seen anything like this, but I'll wait and see how it goes. And so it was like, right, so what do we do? Do we go, no, well, we had this idea and it didn't go anywhere, so we went, no, we got to go out and push it. So we found, there's a retail store in the States called Marbles, and they really specialize in, games that make you think. So we said, well, do you guys want an exclusive on this for a year? And they said, yeah, that'd be brilliant. And for us then, we go, that's great, because that gives us sales evidence to then go back to the distributors the next year to say, well, you missed this last year, do you want to take it this year? So kind of part of that was, we basically, it's tied in with the photos you saw previously. We went over to the States during the summer and kind of like just kind of walked the streets, they have 25 stores around the US, a lot of them centered in Boston and Chicago. And we just lined up in-store demos where like one person would come in on a day and we'd demo this, but we talked to the staff and get them really excited. But it really was like about going back to the beginning and treating this like a whole new thing, and going, if we believe in this, what is it we can do to basically move it forward? Because we couldn't rely on anyone else to do it, so we went.
Yeah, and this is some of the passion that we have about education and everything is like, I know people were talking earlier on about bureaucracy and everything, and the education system is going to take time to change. There's no way around that. But we see other movements like there's the Maker Faire movement, and there's Coder Dojo, and there's all these sort of great on the ground movements going on that are really, they will actually revolutionise education from the ground up. And we really wanted to put something in there that can really help with this, can really just foster that kind of imagination, creative thinking, problem solving, and yeah, just really get it out there. We're now going to do a teacher's guide and try and, you know, talk to people from the sort of top down, but we really wanted to get something out there, bottom up, you know, to make a difference.
And I think, I mean, there's a quick thing. We could have just put all this on the internet and made the icons available for people to play with. But we believe there's an importance in a value exchange that, you know, we spent time coming up with this and thinking about it, and, you know, there is effort involved. And we'd seen it before where we gave away training materials and things like that, and you'd go back and people hadn't used them. You know, I've done it, I've downloaded free stuff off the internet and it sits there even though I know it'll make me a better person. But somehow when there's some value exchange that happens, people, you know, it hurts a little bit when you do it, and you're like, by Jove, I'm going to get some value out of this thing that I've had to pay for it. So that's why we do it. You know, it's not like we're kind of capitalists out to rule the world, but we kind of think by making it hurt for people a little bit, you know, that there is some exchange, and we change that depending on who we're talking to. So if we're talking to someone in like Nigeria or India, where the pricing needs to be different, we drop the price kind of right down, and but still we insist that there has to be some kind of value exchange that takes place, so the people who receive it really cherish the item that they've bought or been given. So.
So it's not a crazy adventure. When we set out, as Rory said, like if we thought if we imagine selling 10,000 sets of Rory Story Cubes, you know, that was kind of where we were thinking. And now that there's, you know, 2 million sets out there, yeah, it is a crazy adventure. There's just one more thing that we want to share.
So when we kind of started all this and we're making the Story Cubes and putting stickers on and seeing it take off around the world, we're kind of going, wouldn't it be so cool if these took off in Japan? Because we're like, because we'd always wanted to go there, but we could never really afford or justify the trip. But we just thought, you know, if these ever get to Japan, we are so getting on a plane and going there.
And it happened this summer. So we and the 3 kids, yeah, launched at a toy fair up there on the top left-hand corner where Rory went, and we couldn't get the kids into the fair, so we both had to kind of do shifts in who could go in and do it. But yeah, launched there, and it's kind of starting again, but it's really good to see. But we did go, and we got to see Studio Ghibli, which was amazing, and we got to do loads of cultural Japanese stuff. And it was just like we stood up looking out the window of our hotel one night, and we looked at each other and just went, wow.
Yeah, because of this, you know, we kind of talk about creating wealth through creativity. You know, whether that's financial wealth or social wealth or kind of mental wealth, it doesn't really matter. But for me in particular, this was evidence of, you know, we had created wealth through our creativity.